definitely.
The 2 points you have made sound pretty defensive in nature, but do you think your Western counterparts in the negotiations with which you have been involved for many times can fully understand the concerns of the Chinese authorities and understand the Chinese agenda in achieving these goals set forth largely by our Western players?
Well, I think you have mentioned indeed a very important point, namely communication or mutual understanding. In fact, that is part of the reason why the Chinese government has all along emphasized so much the importance of international cooperation, as we have conducted over the past so many years. And even in the bilateral way, it is our belief and our hope that we could ensure that each party can, to the best extent possible, understand the other's concern and try as much as possible to accommodate each other's concern. It is only through this kind of friendly dialogue and consultation can we, in the best possible way, address the existing problems or bilateral concerns.
Given the growing integration of China into the international economic order, there have been widespread and very extensive coverage on what's happening here in this country, and an important part of the Western media coverage about this country has always been trade disputes as well as IPR protection. And a lot of the criticisms target what we have failed to do. Do you think the Western media is deliberately building up pressure, and that has served as a strong incentive for China to make a really remarkable progress? What do you think of this sort of approach?
Just a putting aside approach adopted by the Western media, let me share with you how I view the soul of journalism. I think the very soul and essence of journalism should be respect for facts, as well as impartial and objective reporting. So over the past 20 years, China has achieved so much in terms of enforcement. We have mobilized more than 300,000 people working in the enforcement and judicial bodies, and last year we established across the nation 50 IPR service centers and opened a service hotline of 12312 so as to listen to the IPR-related complaints. All those efforts are fairly effective in cracking down on piracy, and even according to a lot of international community assessment as well as industrial association, China's performance has been improving really very considerably. For example, the former Director General of WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Office, Mr. Bogosh, once said that China has accomplished all its current achievements in a speed unmatched in the history of IP protection. And also James Zimmerman, who is the president of American Chamber of Commerce in China, at an April high-level forum on IPR protection held in this country, saying that China really has made marvelous progress on all fronts of intensified efforts for IPR protection. And BSA, the Business Software Alliance of the United States, recently commented China, saying that over the past 3 years, the piracy rate in this nation has been cut by 10%. And this, I think, is even a better performance than some of our negotiating partners, as you mentioned, the United States, because according to the same organization, at this stage, the US has seen as high as 23% piracy rate of the Microsoft's operating system on its own market.
The focus of today's interview is really about the protection of IPR, and one of the issues concerning this area, I'm afraid, is the legislative work. What do you think of the progress that China has made, if any, in this particular regard?
Actually, I think legislation has been one of the very highlights of China's achievements in its IPR protection over the past 20 years, and its efforts so far have been widely acknowledged by the international community, because over the past decades, we have put into place already a rather full and international rules-compliant legal system composed of not only laws, but also regulations. You will find very diversified sources of China's legal documents, because not only will you find professional laws such as trademark law, patent law, and copyright law, but also in the more general and more specialized laws such as criminal law, contracts law, or even anti-unfair competition law. You will find specific IPR dedicated clauses or sections. Moreover, we have got the State Council regulations and departmental rules, as well as the Supreme People's Court and Supreme People's Procuratorate jointly promulgated judicial interpretations on the enforcement of the IPR. So it has been a very comprehensive way of presenting China's legislative efforts. This is for one thing. Also, though China has not been any early bird in the field of IPR legislation, we have tried our best to take into consideration a lot of important factors. For example, China's current economic development level, as well as the international obligations we should observe, since China has already been a party to almost all the major international conventions, treaties concerning IPR protection. It is especially worth mentioning that during the course of China's preparation for its WTO accession, we have conducted a very thorough effort to review and amend our domestic legal system, IPR-related ones included, of course, so as to bring them completely in line with the WTO rules, especially the TRIPS agreement. And we have done that. Pascal Lamy, the Director General of the WTO, at the end of last year, commended China's good compliance with the WTO rules in all aspects, of course, including IPR protection.
Let's take a closer look at the issue within the framework of the WTO. The trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, the so-called TRIPS, is an important international convention on IPR protection and enforcement. China has been a WTO member for 5 years. What's your comment on this convention called the TRIPS?
Yeah, TRIPS, as you rightly pointed out, it was actually one component of the whole single undertaking documents agreed upon at the end of the 8th multilateral trade negotiations, as we so call it, the Uruguay round. It was endorsed in the 1993 at the end of that year and became valid formally on the first day of 1995. This TRIPS agreement, with its wide coverage and very high level of IPR protection, as well as a strong binding force, has been holding a very important role in the whole WTO system. And it is one of the agreements that have to be observed and enforced by each and every WTO member. I should say that this agreement, in its very design and final wording, has taken into full consideration the actual situation and economic development level of all the WTO members, including developing countries. It has well stricken a balance between, if you like, rights and obligations. So therefore, it is widely recognized and supported by the whole WTO contracting parties. Talking about China, we are still a developing country, as you know, and on our way marching forward towards better IPR protection, we have indeed encountered with some difficulties and problems. But that never ever slowed our efforts in intensifying IPR protection. Instead, we have bring ourselves in full compliance with the TRIPS.
What are the problems and challenges we are facing?
Coming back to the basic national condition of China, China is a country, a big developing country with altogether 1.3 billion people, out of which something like 800 million are dwelling in the rural areas. So it has taken China a very long time to get those people enough food and enough thing to wear. And even today, we still face the arduous task of getting some people out of the absolute poverty line. But given these circumstances, it is understandable how difficult it is for us to generally spread the idea of intellectual property rights to every corner of the Chinese society. That is one very basic fact that nobody can deny. Even our leadership never tries to cover this fact. Actually, you cannot expect anyone, when he does not enjoy enough food, to think about anything so high as IPR protection. But given this, the Chinese government's firm determination to strengthen IPR protection remains unchanged. The reason is that we have taken note of the important role of innovation and of creation and the importance of protecting people's intellectual assets and creativity so as to boost the whole country's development. So we will remain firm whatever happened on this track. We will continue along this line. But still, we have to mention and we have to be sober-minded about the basic national condition. And that is what we have been repeatedly telling the outside world. Despite of all the progress we have made so far, you have to focus on China's national condition. You have to understand, and please offer understanding to China's national conditions.
All right, thank you very much. You are watching Dialogue with Ms. Yuan Yuan, Assistant Spokesperson from the Ministry of Commerce. We are talking about the IPR protection in China. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
They are not just big names, but great minds. When you look them in the eye, you discover vision and wisdom. It's not just Q&A, but highly interactive. When we start talking, the dialogue becomes a testing ground for novel ideas and a battlefield for diverse views between East and West. Stay tuned for Dialogue, a vibrant exchange of views on positions and policies, emotions and reasoning.
With Linglong Tire, there will be no uneven road in the world.
CCTV9, China's only English-language news channel, broadcasts throughout China and across the globe. CTV Golden Bridge is CCTV International's exclusive advertising agent and can put your company in touch with an audience of millions.
Welcome back. Well, the image of China is very important. It's something that not only the Western media has been keen on covering, but also a top concern of many of the Chinese here. What do you think of for example, the issue of China's enforcement in ensuring IPR protection? Is there anything that we are proud of?
Of course.
Or something we should feel ashamed of instead?
Of course, something proud of, definitely. Ashamed of, never heard of that. You know, enforcement has been one of the focus, as you rightly put it, especially among the Western media and the Western world, when it comes to the topic of China's IPR protection. I think one of the reasons is because when you have laws written on the paper, one very difficult job is how to get it implemented and delivered, given the case of China's vast territory, so many different places, and the various levels of education and people's livelihood and economic development level. But I should say, over the past 20 years, China has really been very brilliant in putting into place a system of enforcement featuring dual track of administrative and judicial protection. By that I mean, on the one hand, we have set up several specific departmental agencies to take care of the various varieties of IPR categories listed in TRIPS. For example, copyright, we have got the NCAC, the National Copyright Administration of China, to take care, and we've got patent under the leadership of the SIPO, or State Intellectual Property Office, and the job of part of the job of SAIC, the State Administration for Industry and Commerce, is to look at the trademark protection thing in this nation. And customs, of course, will be held accountable for the IPR enforcement efforts on borders or in the import and export stage. So these are what we call the administrative channel. So far, this enforcement channel has been proved highly effective. And on the other hand, we do have a judicial protection channel where we have the public security bodies and the procuratorates as well as the courts joining their efforts together to ensure effective cooperation, effective protection. And for a right holder, once you have found your rights and interests infringed upon by a violator, you can choose either way, to go to the administrative body for a settlement or just go to court. It's up to you. So that is part of the reason why we believe we have indeed achieved a lot in terms of the enforcement. And as I quoted earlier, the BSA number, namely the 10% decline of the pirated software, is a good evidence here, because without such enforcement efforts, how can you make sure that data cannot automatically come down, right? But apart from that, I should say we have, ever since 2004, established one very effective national mechanism, and that is the so-called National Working Group on IPR Protection, mainly responsible for the whole country's IPR enforcement work, headed by very famous Vice Premier Madam Wu Yi. And under this leadership, we have got interparliamental efforts to involving both the administrative organs and the judicial departments to work together to ensure a nationwide effective IPR protection. And moreover, starting from 2006, we have formulated this, which is the action plan on China's IPR protection. We have so far been formulating and publicated 2 pieces. Both are bilingual languages and made available through important channels as trade fairs and Canton Fair, for example, the Central China Expo, as well as high-level forum on IPR protection. It was also given as gifts or reading materials, if you like, after important bilaterals to foreign guests.
Let's look at the regional characteristics of the IPR issue. Do you think countries can fight the battles alone, or do you think more should be done to strengthen the international coordination?
Of course, not alone. The IPR protection is not at all a specific regional issue, but instead it is of global nature. By that I mean we have, in a lot of case detection, found cross-border IP violating criminal activities, if you like, involving some linkages or certain stages of the production or of the sales located elsewhere, some of them in the United States. So that is why we emphasize a lot on the international cooperation, especially through the bilateral channels for information sharing, for clue provision. For example, we are talking about IP violation. It is very hard for us in such a huge country to know specifically where the hideouts are for those infringers. But if a foreign IP holder, you have got a clue, we warmly welcome you to complain, to lodge a complaint to our IPR service centers. And so long as we got that clue, we will look very seriously into those things.
Excuse me, do you mean we have a specific telephone numbers for those to voice their complaints? The hotline has been established.
We have got a hotline, yeah. Across all the 50 service centers we have established in medium-large cities in China last year, and the number is 12312. You can call it if you like. So we have to, through this bilateral or multilateral international cooperative efforts, to cut off the chain, the whole chain of the cross-border IPR infringement. This is for one thing. For the second thing, I think sometimes we are really curious about the pirated DVDs. How come some of the blockbusters, even never put on the screen in the United States, already got fake copies or pirated copies here on the Chinese market? So where is the source of this master copy? I'm sure that we have to think about the very source of the country where it was born, you know, because we will be having no way in going to that country and having that copy, which is yet released to the general public, and get it pirated.
So the evil got to be stopped at the point of its origin. In terms of where we have the source, that's a very interesting point. What can we do to make overseas observers of China's IPR protection feel more confident? Because it seems to be a big issue that a lot of those in the West are very suspicious about what is being done by the Chinese authorities to reduce violations of IPR and, of course, trademarks infringements as well.
I think parts of the reasons we have already covered. That is due to the lack of an objective enough or comprehensive enough reporting by some or certain Western media. So the Western people are yet, some of them are yet to be equipped with a comprehensive picture of China's real considerate efforts as well as marvelous achievements in IPR protection. But talking about how to boost confidence, I think two things. First, fundamentally, we will continue our efforts of protecting IPR in an effective way. And one very specific move we are going to take during the course of this year is to well implement this 2007 action plan. These are not written only for paper, for white and black, but to be delivered in action. Actions speak louder than words, as we strongly believe it. For example, we are going to formulate and amend 14 rules and regulations this year, and we are going to promulgate another 7 judicial interpretations and guiding opinions so as to ensure more effective guarantee of IPR protection. And secondly, we are going to wage tougher battle against infringement, especially for those most problematic industries or places, as you mentioned, some of the markets. And thirdly, we are going to ensure better services offered by the already established IPR service centers to make their services more convenient for the IP holders to enjoy. And fourthly, we can expect the promulgation of a national strategy of IP protection. It is already known that China has identified the IP protection as a national strategy, and the formulation of the strategy is expected to be completed before the end of this year. I think that will be a very strong impetus to the overall efforts of China's IP protecting campaign. Moreover, as always, education and training remains a top priority of the Chinese government, and we will continue to do that. Talking about the vast majority of the people, we need to educate the society. And we have an annual IPR publicity week held in every April. And I think that has been a very effective way to make the concept of IP known to more people, to make known to them that it is harmful to use fake fertilizer, and you will get no crops at all when the harvest season comes out, etc. We will let the local people know about those things. And apart from these specific measures, I think one other very important thing, perhaps of even more critical importance as I see it, is further strengthening of international cooperation. Part of it we have already discussed about how to enhance mutual understanding, but another thing is about publicity. I think talking about a correct or a fair publicity of China's IPR performance, we need the help and concerted efforts of both Chinese media and the Western media. The Western media we have analyzed, and you have analyzed. The Chinese media, you are here, and I really very appreciate this opportunity to invite me to be here and share with the viewers of this program what is the position of the Chinese government and what we have done. Apart from this, actually we have many other channels. For example, the regular or irregular press conferences held either by the competent IPR agencies in China or by the State Council Information Office. Important and useful information can be delivered there as well. Also, China, having in mind the fact that a lot of foreigners cannot read and write Chinese at this stage, though some of them do, and very fluent, we have opened an official website for IP protection. And you can get access to it at www.ipr.gov.cn. So documents of this kind in both Chinese and English languages can be found there, as well as the latest news and achievements and measures adopted by the Chinese government. So it's all about communication, my second part. I think apart from what we have done in real sense, earnestly, of course, that is the foundation. You have to do this thing, and we will do this thing definitely for our own good, not at all out of external concerns, as you mentioned, or just purely for living up to our international standards. But secondly, to have better understanding of the other's actual situation, be realistic, will be very helpful to the Western world.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.